Hi, I'm Jessa and I'm currently studying towards my RICS Chartership in Quantity Surveying and Construction. Today I'm looking at the competency for ethics, rules of conduct and professionalism, particularly looking at RICS governance and disciplinary procedures. As always, you can find my timestamps, sources and a link to some example questions in the description below. Corporate governance. The RICS is governed through constitutional documents including the Royal Charter, bylaws, regulations and standing orders. As the RICS is a Royal Charter body, they have to regulate their members for the public advantage. This is led by the Standards and Regulations Board to maintain trust and confidence in the profession and to make sure regulated professionals and firms are operating to these required standards. For the purposes of the APC, I'll provide a quick overview of what they are, but I don't expect that we'd need to know all the absolute ins and outs of these, as some of them are quite big documents. Royal Charter. The Royal Charter is a document granted by the monarchy and advised by the Privy Council, which defines an organisation's objectives, constitution, and grants it power to govern its own affairs. For example, the RICS has the Standards and Regulations Board to govern the performance of their chartered surveyors and regulated firms. Bylaws. These are rules made by an organisation to regulate itself. These are enforced by the Standards and Regulations Board, defining the standards that us surveyors need to uphold, as well as the sanctions if we don't stick to them. The sections of the RICS bylaws are as follows. Number 1. Applications and definitions. This section states who the bylaws apply to, so RICS members, firms, or those regulated or with special agreements with the RICS. Bylaw number 2. Membership and registration. Establishing who counts as a member and firm, their privileges and obligations to the RICS. Number 3. Designations. Who can use the RICS initials after their name, like MRICS for the Chartered Surveyors and FRICS for the Fellows, and how members and firms can describe themselves. Section 4 is contribution to funds, the fees that are payable, compensation, and consequences of failure to pay. Section number 5 is conduct, how members and firms should act and present themselves, and the consequences if they don't follow these standards. Bylaw number 6 is Governing Council, officers and staff. Who makes up the Governing Council, chief executives, and professional indemnity required. Bylaw 7 is Subordinate boards, committees and groups, the requirements for the Standards and Regulations Board, Management Board, Audit Committee and professional groups within the RICS. Bylaw number 8 is the procedure for general meetings, how annual general meetings, ordinary general meetings and extraordinary general meetings are held and practiced. Bylaw number 9 is accounts and audit, so how the RICS keep their accounting records and appoint an auditor. Bylaw number 10 is a general section referring to property and funds of the RICS, trustees, contracts, dissolution and administration. Regulations are rules made and maintained by authorities for members to follow. The RICS regulations refer to the bylaws throughout and build upon these, establishing the more specific procedures and processes. They actually have the exact same section headings as the bylaws, so that makes these both a bit easier to remember, but it's worth noting that as at the time of posting this video, there are no regulations concerning bylaw section 5 for conduct. Nonetheless, conduct is a huge topic within the RICS, and standards are defined by the Rules of Conduct effective from the 2nd of February 2022. Standing Orders. This document is a smaller and slightly more manageable one to look at. It essentially describes the governance processes for Bylaw 6 for Governing Council, officers and staff, describing the processes for electing RICS officers and the Governing Council, emergency decisions and conduct at meetings. Disciplinary procedures. The Royal Charter and bylaws authorise the SRB to make rules called Regulatory Tribunal rules about exercising disciplinary powers. Circumstances that could be liable to disciplinary action include complaints or concerns being reported, conduct bringing the RICS into disrepute, serious professional incompetence, failure to adhere to bylaws and rules, or a criminal conviction. The RICS would then review and consider whether concerns are serious enough and/or in the public interest to pursue. They seek to take an open-minded and balanced view, aiming to act proportionately, accurately and transparently about the allegation and considering the evidence that they've received. If you don't receive disciplinary action following an investigation, they may give advice for future practice and will keep record of the information in case they receive similar concerns and complaints in the future. If allegations are serious enough, the Standards and Regulation Board may consider taking disciplinary action. The different sanctions are as follows. Fixed penalty notices. If a regulated member didn't comply with their CPD requirements, didn't comply with their professional obligations of providing information to the RICS, or if a firm didn't pay their fees, the first time this is breached would result in a fixed penalty of just a caution. If you didn't comply with one of these for a second time within 10 years of that initial caution, this would result in a fixed penalty consisting of both a caution and a fine. If you wanted to appeal and get the penalty notice reviewed, you have 28 days from receiving the notification of a fixed penalty to fill out a prescribed form that comes with an administration fee. A fixed penalty reviewer will then either confirm, modify, or revoke the fixed penalty. If it gets revoked, you get your admin fee repaid too. You could also receive a regulatory compliance order. Previously known as consent orders, regulatory compliance orders are agreements between the RICS and a regulated member that they are liable for a disciplinary action. This means the member accepts that they have fallen short of the expected standards. They accept the sanction and any steps required to meet these standards and prevent it from happening again. These can include a fine of up to £2,000 per breach, the RICS costs to administer this, a caution, and/or conditions on their membership that they'll need to abide by. Usually, the name of this member or firm will be published on the RICS website for 12 months too. The last main outcome could be the regulatory tribunal. If the regulated member doesn't agree with or doesn't comply with the regulatory compliance order, they will either be referred to a single member of the regulatory tribunal in cases that don't warrant a hearing, or they'll be referred to a disciplinary panel with 2 regulatory tribunal members and a panel chair for the most serious cases. These people will investigate further and determine whether a sanction should be imposed. If the allegation is proved to the disciplinary panel, they can issue a caution, fine, conditions, or an order to expel or deregister the regulated member. These decisions can also be appealed through an application to the head of regulatory tribunals within 28 days of notification. You will need to specify the grounds relied on in support of the appeal, and it's probably a process that isn't worth finding out too much more about unless you were going through the process itself, so I'll leave it there for now. Thanks for watching this video. These documents were quite a lot to process, so if you interpret them differently or have anything else to add, please leave a comment. I'm making other videos for my revision for the final interview for the RICS APC, so check out my channel for more videos on that, or for content to do with mental health and construction. That's all I have to say for now. I hope it helped build on your mind.